Hey everyone, Jeff here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over NIXI for our talent and gear guides. Now, NIXI is in a weird spot, so the gear guide is going to be fairly simple. I'm just going to list like my most desired stats, and then we're going to talk more about the talents. So for gear, generally with NIXI, I think she goes pretty standardly at the top end, and then it gets very complicated depending on how fancy you're trying to get. Basically, you want to get master offers, and legend offers is less so, but it like depends how you're trying to build your character. Generally speaking, I think you want the waist belt on like every character for the most part. It seems to be that way. Queen of Worms also seems like the easiest win. Master offers is the most important stat in the game, pretty consistently. And this also gives you your regen, which counteracts waste, and the chance to heal on kill, which you almost have to have on one slot on NIXI because it's almost impossible to avoid damage in Act 2. Now, other stats that we're looking for in NIXI. She's a weird character who cares basically only about attacks and strikes. So you're going to want either attack damage or strike damage. But maybe more importantly than that, you're going to want crit. A lot of her stuff relies on crit. So if you are leaning into the crit build, you're going to want that. If not, you can avoid it. You might also want duration if you're doing the shadow step thing, which I will talk about soon. You might also want cooldown if you're doing the same thing, which again, I will get into in a moment when we talk about the talents. Maybe the most important thing if you're trying to push Darkness 100 is Curse of Weakness. It just lowers enemies' damage. It's really good. Really good. It comes on chest piece and relic. If you can find it, keep it. Weapon's tough to say. You want a weapon with a lot of attack damage, with a lot of crit chance, but you also would like something that has some type of status effect. NIXI does have a talent that buffs her damage to status effect targets. Also, her Shadow Dance ability applies your attack statuses, so having a dagger that applies statuses is very effective for the purposes of, you know, doing the shadow step stuff. Another thing to note, Fate Stone is very good. On NIXI, you don't always have to use it, but one of the best ways to get extra crit chance, which you can get 18% from level 3 Master Guidance from the Fates. It's about the most you can get in the game from that, so if you pair it with crit here, 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 and a little bit here, you can end up with a decent amount, which will help for the whole crit build. But like, that's really all you're looking for. Oh, one more thing's important. Half Moon. Half Moon and Black Lightning. Those are two things, two special effects you're really after. So Half Moon is essentially Sickles of Mort, the blessing, in item form. It will apply any of your status effects from like a regular hit. It will also proc your special effect attacks at a much higher rate. For example, like Black Lightning. I don't have a Black Lightning piece, unfortunately. I've been grinding to find one, so I can't really show it off. It's 6% chance to do like 666 damage. If you have Half Moon, if you have the Sickles of Mort flying out, and then you have some Black Lightning in there, it'll start like raining Black Lightning on people. So there is a build where you put on full Half Moon pieces plus Black Lightning that works really well. The only other effect that you're really looking for here is evasive maneuvers. I have some somewhere. No, I don't. Can't find it. I forgot to put it on. Anyways, it's it basically gives you 6 extra evasion whenever you dash. Doesn't matter. It's good. So evasive maneuvers, 1. Black Lightning, Half Moon. Keep an eye out for those for your NIXI things. That's really it for gear. Not much else to say. You want, 250 plus life. A little bit of evasion because your armor's not going to be good. There's just no way to get it because you're a light armor character. And because you're melee, you're going to get punched in the face a lot because you don't have range. But yeah, let's look at the talents. This is where it gets really interesting, because NIXI is kind of a mess of a character talent-wise. So before I talk about this, the way damage works in the game now is there's like 3 multiplier buckets. Talents are basically one of those multipliers. Then there's like gear and some talents and some blessings. And then there's like mainly blessings and like stuff you see in the game like Mayhem and God of War. So depending on what your talents do, kind of leads your character that direction. For the purposes of that, I'm not going to be talking about trying to build a summoner NIXI or cast NIXI because it's just not supported in the tree. You can try and do it, but it's just not a thing. That, you know, it's in here. You're just not doing it. So let's go by talents one by one, like I did the Averon video. You guys seem to like that more than the way I did the Maris video. And we'll take it from there. So first off, as always, I think on every build, on every character, I take Trickster's Presence. I'm going to keep moving my camera down because I'm going to keep sliding down in this chair because that's just how I am. 4 alteration dice is too good not to take. Always. This is kind of the first decision point in your builds. You get, how much is this? You get 2.4% crit chance. If you're doing a crit build, you're probably going to take this. If you're not doing a crit build, you're probably going to take this. You'll see in a second, like as we talk about this, why that ends up being the case. So strikes do more damage, attacks do more damage. If you're doing a strike build, you take this. If you're not doing a strike build, you take the attack one. Again, because of the way damage works, it's important that you are leaning into the one that, you know, that you decide to go with. Dexterity is actually quite good depending on your attack speed. But also you may not be attacking, which has to do with Dance of Shadows, which is NIXI's best talent. But we'll discuss that as we get to it. In Venom, again, very good if you're not doing his strikes and status. I think you just always want this probably though, because like even at one point, because you could apply it with Sickles of Mort. You can apply it with, you apply it with your regular attacks. You can also apply it with Dance of Shadows. NIXI's a really weird character. Open Wounds is fine too. One of the things about NIXI that is kind of important to see here is that your critical attacks apply infinite rupture, right? So you have this, you have this. There's 2 statuses. You have Dirty Tricks right here. You deal more damage to enemies that have a status effect applied to them, right? So if you combine all this, you go take Hoarfrost from Winter that increases the damage by, I believe it's 66%. I'll put it on the screen. I believe it's 66% per status on the enemy. And there's all of your scaling because you already have built-in status effects. And the poison can get pretty strong. So you're kind of like priced into being a Winter build if you want to play NIXI optimally, in my opinion. Which I think is a problem with the talent tree, but again, it is what it is. She has experience pool, like basically every character. If you need it, you need it. If you don't, you don't. Whatever. Then we have Fleet-footed, which gets you up to 12% movement speed. Good for the dash builds and the no attack builds. It's good. It's always good, never bad. If you have extra points, you can always throw it in here. Greed is good. This is an important talent to talk about because you actually only need to put 1 point into it if you're using it the fancy way. The fancy way being Dance of Shadows, currently, from my understanding and my experience and what I've been told, does not trigger Greed as good. So as long as you do not attack, your critical hit chance goes up. Because of that, you get like full crits with Dance of Shadows. Now, if I'm understanding that incorrectly, let me know in the comments, some of you guys from the Discord who inevitably watch this video. But that is my understanding of it, of this like weird interaction here. Because I don't think that's how it should work, but that seems to be how it is working. Like it's only counting your like full attack and not your Dance of Shadow attacks. Because I guess it's not technically you attacking. Which is pretty good. All right, so we have Shadow Shift. Shadow Shift is kind of like the main ability of NIXI. If you haven't used it yet, basically what it does is you get a black orb over your head. While you have that orb, if you dash through an enemy, the key part here is through an enemy, you will go into Shadow Shift form, which turns the screen a little bit darker. And while you're there, if you manually perform an attack, it's a guaranteed crit that does a lot more damage. However, typically you don't want to do this. Typically, you want to stay in Shadow Shift and not perform the melee attack. There's builds where you might want to do it. There's builds where you know, may just want to just dash around instead. I like those a little bit better myself. Things to consider with this ability. It is affected by duration. So it has 2.5 naturally. That goes up with increased duration from items. And it is affected by reduced cooldown, although it's at a 50% rate, I believe is the exact number. So, for example, if you had a 100% cooldown reduction, if my math is correct, you would go take the cooldown to 4.5 seconds, not 3 seconds. Again, feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on my math. That's not my strong suit, assuredly. But, the point is that duration does in fact work on power duration and regular duration, and cooldown reduction does work on Shadow Shift. So that's important to consider when you're building this character. Now, if you're just using it and attacking after to cash in the dashes, or to cash in for a big hit, I don't know, words, right? Then don't worry about that. And I'm just gonna go ahead and look down this tree here because this is like a whole part of NIXI. So then we have the Dark Alley talent, which is currently not working. And I think this is one of NIXI's big problems with this whole tree right now, is this being broken. So as currently, until this is fixed, you just put 1 point in here so you get the next one. When it's fixed, it's going to be really important, because what's currently happening is when you're in Shadow Shift and you're dashing around, what will happen is you'll exit Shadow Shift randomly because time wears out, right? Because you're not manually doing it. And then you don't have a dash to continuously dash away, and then you get hit a bunch and you die because you're NIXI and you don't have a lot of armor. So once this becomes working like it should, we'll probably be in a better spot, I would say. Hopefully. We'll see. Next up is Cloak and Dagger. This is a 5-point talent almost every time, I feel like. Anytime, if you're going to stay in Shadow Shift, if your build revolves around staying in Shadow Shift, you want 5 points into this. 50% attack damage, and 100 evasion is crazy. I think it's 100 evasion. Let's check here. Sometimes it doesn't always scale up all the way, like Swerving Darkness. So this reduces your dash distance, but increases your dash recharge speed, going up to 600%. What this means is that during your Shadow Shift, you are dashing around like a absolute madman. And this enables some dash NIXI builds, even though she has no other dash support in the tree, which is very odd. This is part of why the half moon thing is good, because you trigger half moons on dash. This lets you dash constantly. Half moons scale off of your attack. You get the joke, right? And so on and so on. Now, this one is kind of also like a 4-point talent, like, because the negative stays full at 1 to 4 points, but the positive goes up significantly each point. So it's weird trying to figure these out, like how you're supposed to not stack all the way into these talents. And then we get to Dance of Shadows. This, as I said before, this is her best talent, generally speaking. While you're in Shadow Shift, your little shadow aura you have around you while you're in the Shadow Shift form starts performing these shadow attacks against nearby enemies. These attacks can proc all of your attack stuff. They're basically considered attacks that you are doing to enemies. The attack rate is 0.01. I'm not sure exactly the speed on that, but I know it's very, very fast. I believe it can also proc Dagger Storm and stuff like that. It's just really good. Like, I know it can proc lethality. You can't even tell if it procs Dagger Storm because it's attacking so fast, is what I'm saying. It can proc Poison Darts, stuff on your weapon. If you have Lady Justice's attack, it weakens everyone around you, which is very powerful. It's just a really, really strong ability. And one of the only reasons to be playing NIXI, to be honest. The character's in a rough spot. Again, I'll reiterate that. Rough spot. And then finally in this tree, it's Endless Night, which has a 66% chance when you would leave Shadow Shift to put you back into Shadow Shift. You cannot increase this by luck. No talent scales with luck in this game currently. So 66% chance, no matter how much luck you have, even though luck increases chance effects on items and like blessings, doesn't affect this. So it's always 66%. So you could stay in Endless Night for several minutes. You could stay in it for 6 seconds or 2.5 seconds. That's just how it is. Anyways, that's the Shadow Tree, right? It's all about Dance of Shadows and being able to dance of shadows as much as possible and make the best out of Swerving Darkness while getting the extra evasion from Cloak and Dagger to stay alive and extra damage, which affects Dance of Shadows, is kind of the whole thing. So, back to over here where we're talking about, 30 tricks. It's really good because enemies always have status effects applied to them. Really about finding the points to put into here more than anything. Lethality. I've typically not found a build that really gets to put 5 points into this. Just because I don't feel like I ever have enough points. But normally I feel like I want 3 points into it at least, if I can. The ability to instantly remove things like the jackals, the laser cats, the insect mages, everyone who's been watching my channel knows that's my most hated enemy. The bombers, immediately from the field with a pretty high rate, once you have like high crit rate, is super strong, especially when you're just spamming attacks like a crazy person. So lethality is really good. Again, it's one of those things like putting 3 points into it is not bad. You don't have to put 5. Makeshift combat is almost completely unnecessary. If you're really goofing around and like trying to do something, go for it. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Crippling Dosage is fine, but also not really worth it. It's a 1-point talent to get to the next tier. I also kind of think Deep Poison is a 1-point talent as well. You could argue it's 2, but you start off with 1 stack already. Then you get to an extra stack, right? And then if you go for Mind Reaper, which is the poison one, the last poison talent, where stacks go +2, so it ends up you'd have 4 stacks and it lasts forever. I don't think you really need a 5th stack. If you can't find another spot for this, maybe, but at the same time, you could be putting a point to Dirty Tricks here. It might be better off. That's just my opinion. And again, part of the reason this too is because it's right next to Poison Darts. I think if her tree was like slightly differently arranged, this might be easier. But because of the way it's laid out, a lot of this poison stuff is all clumped together. It makes it really hard. And then you have a lot of like this attack stuff is up here in this corner. So it's really hard to find the right combination of points. So Poison Darts, super strong ability. Like, as far as builds for NIXI, there's basically like 2 builds. There's Poison Darts. There's like 3 builds. There's like Poison Darts. There's like Mind Reaper. I put those as like 2 separate things. And then there's Dance of Shadows, Endless Night type build. You can mess around with other stuff, but generally speaking, that's how I see NIXI. In my experience so far. You've got stuff like Eviscerate, which is very good It's just trying to find a home for it is so hard because poison darts is so good. You can trigger it with Dance of Shadows, so you end up kind of wanting to be doing that instead of Eviscerate. Now, if you are leaning super hard into attack damage or strike damage, you could go with Dance of Shadows, but I still think you'd rather go with Poison Darts. Poison Darts does a lot. It's so whenever you crit, you're shooting out 4 darts, but it's actually 10 darts, and it also scales with increased strike projectiles, so you can end up shooting like 12 to 16 darts pretty easily. They all do 120% of your attack damage. They all apply poisoned, and they all get all the effects from these. So if you max out crippling dosage, they move slower. You know, the poison lasts forever. Extra damage from statuses. It counts as a status for the purpose of, Hoarfrost. It's really good. Really good. Poison Darts is a very good skill. These are 2 of the better skills NIXI has. We have Fight or Flight. This is one of those that you probably want 1 or 2 points in as well. Like I said, this row's tough. There's so many good skills. So your attack hits have a chance to recharge a dash. It's just good. You're probably not going to be able to fit 5 points in here just because she doesn't have the space to, because the bottom of this tree is where she gets all of her good stuff. But NIXI has to dash a lot because she's such a fragile character. If you're playing Darkness 30, I think you could probably get away with kind of building however you want to because the gear is so powerful. And maybe you could like max this out and go for like some silly cut burst build. That transitioning me into cut burst, of course. I don't really see a point for this. I get the joke here, right? Whenever you hit an enemy, chance to spawn gold. That in conjunction with greed is good, gives you extra crit chance. I guess if you need to farm gold, maybe you max out cut purse on like a lower darkness level and play like an attack speed build, I guess, but I'm not feeling cut purse. This is one I don't put points into. Hidden tools basically always gets filled out for me unless I'm swerving dark. It's like you kind of have to figure out a way. If you're doing the Shadow Shift build, Swerving Darkness gets it. If you're going with the Mind Reaper, Poison Darts type thing, go with Hidden Tools. Assassination is great. You want more damage to deal with bosses, but NIXI doesn't have as much of a boss problem. It's more like the regular enemies for NIXI. The elites are tougher. The golems hit really hard. Bosses or whatever. Dagger Storm's fine. More attacks are great. More chances to crit. There's nothing wrong with this. Cold Blood is interesting. It's very powerful, obviously, especially if you're doing something like Eviscerate. I don't love losing 6 life, for sure. And I think Cold Blood's biggest problem, if we want to be serious here, is where it is on the tree. If you look to the things near it, right, we have Dagger Storm, which you could argue that Cold Blood's just better, and that's fine. But Cold Blood has a negative. Then you have Dance of Shadows, which, as I mentioned, is NIXI's best talent, in my opinion. Next to that, you have Scorpion, which, if you're doing the poison build, you have to take this. You have to max it out, which I can't hear because I don't have the points, but it's 75% poison damage. Correction. It makes your poison deals 75% of your attack damage every second. It's very powerful. And then you have Rogue's Legacy, which is an insane reference to one of my favorite roguelikes. And in addition to that, you get attack damage for each empty strike slot you have, which is 12% per. So if you were to not take any strikes in your run, and also take a strike slot from makeshift combat, that would basically mean this talent here becomes okay, and it gives you 12% attack damage. Let's just say you have 5 empty strike slots. You're getting 60% attack damage from this talent for 3 points. So And here you're getting 45% attack damage, but you're also losing 18% life. So Cold Blood's just in a bad spot, really. Like, if it was up in this area, probably pretty good. Down here, overshadowed by, like, good stuff. Yeah, I kind of already talked about all these, hyped them all up. This row is strong. This row is strong. And that's, I think this is part of the problem. It's like, this row is so good, but the overall theme here isn't as good. And it doesn't mesh as well. And at the bottom, we have some weird stuff. So Endless Night, I mentioned 66% chance to go back in. It's good, but unreliable. It'll probably be better once Dark Alley's fixed. Mind Reaper, it does what it does. It's good. I don't love the idea of dots in this game, generally, and status effects just don't really do enough damage right now. The only reason Poison works is because it scales off your attack damage as well. Finesse is fine. If you're using a dash build, it's okay. I found the Endless Night worked better for me in the dash build I ran because you have a better chance to stay in, but this is more consistent, so that one's up to you. This is kind of a weak final talent, to be honest. I kind of want this to be like 2 dash charges or something. It just doesn't, it's not flashy, you know? When you compare it to other stuff like Pet Dragon or like Telekinesis, dash recharge speed is increased by 50%. It's a little underwhelming. And then Vendetta. Your critical hits deal 300% extra damage. This talent's super interesting. I haven't found a way to really make it work yet, but I want to. So it's gear dependent, right? Because it only works in critical hits. But the most important part of it is that it doesn't say attack critical hits like most other things, like lethality attack critical hits. This says attack critical hits. If these said just any critical hits, that would open up some stuff. Basically, the only way to get critical hit up that is not an attack critical hit is off of gear. So you could get like power critical hits or cast critical hits, strike critical hits, what have you. And those will also do 300% more damage, which is crazy. The problem is you have to have an insane gear setup to get that to work, which I have not found yet. Once I do, I will make a video and let you guys know if this is even somewhat viable. The other problem is guidance from the fates that you use to bump up your attack crit doesn't work. It's only for attack crit. So there's no other way to bump up your critical rate for any other types of crits. So until we have some support for non-attack crits, I think Vendetta is going to sit on the bench. But I am holding on to my stocks, is what I will say. We are holding on to Vendetta stocks. We are selling Finesse, and we are buying Mind Reaper and Endless Night. That's where I'm at. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the tree. I think she's overall the second weakest character. Scotty being the weakest right now. But that's not to say she doesn't have anything going for her. You saw she could clear Darkness 100 on like 3 or 4 different builds pretty consistently. If you want the assassin style of gameplay, that's her. You want the edgy emo elf, that's her. She likes to have dots. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully some of this stuff gets cleaned up and moved around when they do a patch, which should be coming up relatively soonish. I know they were giving people some time to play around with broken stuff. But anyways, I hope this guide helped. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. I know it was a lot of rambling. Let me know if you have any thoughts on how I should approach this next time, and I will see you all then. Have a great day. Jeff out.